Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm setting up to cut the pointy tips on the chair legs. These are the short front legs, and I just eyeballed that angle with the laser and set up some stop blocks, and you can see it's just easily cutting away there. And I wanted to be left with a little 10cm square at the top, and I just cleaned that up with a hand plane, and that looked good, and I was happy with the way that came out. So then I started on the little V-shaped front rail that goes in between them. So I've got a little scrap here that I'm cutting to width, just marking out the center, and then going 80mm on the edges and ruling that up into the center. And then I just eyeballed that again on the miter saw using the laser, held it down bare-handed, which I don't recommend anyone do, and proceeded to cut it. Now it is only Western Red Cedar, so it cuts and planes very easily and smoothly. Got a slight mismatch. I should be over that way a bit more, and I might just fix that. That's it. What really matters is that I've got 80mm there, which I've got perfectly there. Let's see how we did on this side. Haven't used a hand plane in a while. About 79.5. That'll do. So then I moved on to the joinery, and I'm just using dominoes here for the joinery because I can. And there's a lot of people who hate me for that. And that's just tough luck, I guess. It's fast and it's easy. And sharpening my pencil the traditional way. And all I've got to do is transfer those marks along, and I can see that I can fit 2 dominoes neatly there. And just plunge them in. And that went pretty well. And these are just the blanks for the angled back legs of the chair. I just marked them out full size. And because I don't have a bandsaw, I'm using the track saw and doing a series of about 8 cuts on each one. I had to cut from both sides because the blade wasn't quite deep enough, and stop right where the bend was, plunge and continue in the other direction. It was a bit painful, slow and scary, but it did get the job done. You tell me when my saw blade is level with this, okay?
Yeah. It's level. Stand. Stop.
It's okay, you've got to keep going.
You cut a small bit past.
Aha, there it is. And with those legs roughly cut out, I made a template out of some 19mm MDF, and I'm just double stick taping that onto the blank, ready for the tool I hate most, the router table. Now I don't have a flush trim or a pattern bit big enough to do this in one pass, so I'm doing it with a little upside down bit first. I don't know, what do you call that? You call that one a pattern following bit, right? A top bearing bit first, and that's going to give me a small flat spot at the right shape, and that went pretty good. And just cleaning it up with and that sucked so bad when that happened. Wow, I don't know how or what, I don't know. That's right, I went, the bearing was too low and I was able to skip past it. Anyway, I've moved on. So now I've flipped it upside down and I'm using a bottom bearing bit, and this bit can knock off about 50mm at a time. So very shallow cuts, very light passes, and moving at a very slow rate. And the bearing's now following the surface that my other bit made. So at this point I could probably pull the template off. Yeah, and just very carefully getting that down to final size. Now I don't know what I'm going to do to fix this, but apparently when a bloke uses a hand plane, it's the same sort of feeling as when a cat licks itself, so it'll make me feel better. So I'm just going to like make myself feel better. That does feel better. And I just cleaned up the straight faces with my number 5 jack plane, and that came out fairly nice. And it was ready now to cut the, yeah, that's still there, to cut these pointy bits on the top of these. Now with this bent leg, I couldn't just set up a stop lock, so basically I just eyeballed it using the laser and my pencil line, clamped it down and carefully cut it. And did that on all 4 sides, and that worked fairly well. To get these sides here that there's no pencil line for, I just aligned the laser with the edge of the other cut, and yeah, it worked. Careful not to knock it over. Oh. Oh.
This.
Now go next to it over there.
Like this?
Yep. And if you follow me on Insta, you'll have seen this one. So now it was time to make up this center section of the backrest, and it's this section here. It's an asymmetrical design with 2 main bits in the center and 2 angled outriggers. So I had a piece of scrap there that I could get it out of that I cut down to rough width, and then another piece for the smaller outriggers, and I jointed one face, and then I jointed the opposing edge, and that was nice and square. And then I thicknessed it down to its correct thickness. Then I cut it down to its final width. So now I'm going to work on these 2 little angled outriggers, I guess you could call them, asymmetrically angled outriggers. So I'm just eyeballing that angle and cutting the long one first, and then I'm cutting the short one. And that's what I think I want to end up with. Looks about right. Now I'm going to work on this center pillar. And this center pillar is made up of a single piece cut in half at an angle, flipped over and glued back together. So I did that, and then I'm just adding some masking tape to the back of it to hold it together and creating kind of a backbone. So like a miter fold, I'm gluing this together. And that worked well. So I added some glue, and I used an Allen key to spread it, and pushed it together, and used some tape to pull it tight, and it pulled it really nice and tight. And that's the garbage truck in the background. Welcome to suburbia. And what seemed to be the next logical step now was to fit that whole assembly into the middle with the frame clamped tightly shut, and just to finesse it until it was a nice tight fit. And those are compound angles, so they wedge in as you push them in. So you've got to get it just right, and it'll land in the right spot. And then it just made sense to glue them to the center pillar in this position, because it actually clamped everything at the right angle. I was finding it impossible to clamp it before. But not only did it clamp it at the right angle, it also made sure that nothing was protruding and it was going to come together in a way that's not flush or the wrong shape. And a nice tight joint. That worked really well. Everywhere in there. Right, so I'm just going to add a couple of dowels here to the pillar for alignment to allow me to position it. I'm not sure if I'm going to glue them in yet or not. they'll serve no structural purpose. Oh, maybe they will. Yeah, I'll glue them in. Make my life difficult. But you can see I've put a clamp here to support this structure because the glue's still wet. And you can see I've got a little bit of squeeze out happening on the back corner there. That tells me that that's now changed my angle slightly. So I may have a bit of a hard time fitting it back in, but who cares? Now getting dowels here is extremely difficult, but the Dalmax, who no longer sponsor or support me because they don't love me anymore, is the perfect tool for this. So I'm following the seam of my glue joint and locating the edge of my Dalmax with the very, very edge of that seam. Let's see if we can zoom in there for you. See right where it meets up there, and then I can align this check mark with my pencil mark over on the chair, and that will all align. So without further ado, let's drill some holes. So I'm taking great care to start the drill bit off very slowly here, so that the jig doesn't move when the drill bit's getting set up to begin with, because there's only half the clamping force on that. I can't clamp the left side, and as long as you do that, it turns out quite well. So when I still had all of this clamped together, I went around and marked the outline with a pencil, with a very sharp pencil. I'll zoom in so you can see that. So you can see I've marked that out. So all I've got to do now is align my Dalmax, check mark in, so that the front edge of it is aligned with this line. I'll show you from the back edge so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to eyeball that like that basically, and drill, but on the front. Alright, let's see how we went. That's good. Alright. So now the next step in this process was to make and shape the rails so that I can glue together this entire backrest and back leg assembly. And these rails have got a gentle arc on them, and I don't have a bandsaw, so I needed some help. Can anyone guess where I am? Does this look familiar? Let's see if this jogs your memory. I had to phone a friend. How you going, mate?
Hey Louie, how are you, mate? How are you?
Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Your shop.
That's okay. Always happy to have you in the shop, mate. What do you need?
I've got to use your bandsaw, mate, because I don't have one.
No problem.
And you've got two, so I reckon you can.
All right.
Lend me one.
Oh, mate, I'm more than happy to have you in the shop, mate. It's a privilege. All right, you guys go for it. Things
Awesome.
over there. Sure you know how to use it. When was the last time you used a bandsaw?
High school, 20-something years
okay.
ago.
I might have to supervise then.
Yeah.
All right, mate, no worries.
Good on you, thanks.
No problem.
Enjoy.
Yep.
I'm nervous. Now Victor's little 3-wheeler bandsaw made small work of this, and being Western Red Cedar it was very easy to cut. But I can't imagine having to do this without a bandsaw. I probably would have notched it out in stages with the dado head and then had to shape it with a rasp. It would have been out of square and rough. No, it wouldn't. I would have got it right, but it would have just taken me a long time. So thank you, Victor. Now these seat rails join the front assembly to the rear assembly, and they meet at a 4-degree angle where they join onto the leg. So I've set my domino to 86 degrees, and I'm going to plunge those lines. So cutting the dominoes on the actual rails themselves was really easy, but doing that on the legs I had to hand align it and keep it at 90 degrees, which was a bit more challenging. Now with a lot of luck, that has landed right where I wanted it to, and I've got a leg that leans out that way. If you don't have dominoes, you can use mortise and tenon joints, dowels. Use whatever you want, really. And that is exactly what we want. Taper in towards the back of the seat, so the seat's wider at the front, narrower at the bum over there. So it was time to start gluing things together, and first we glued the front leg to rail assembly together and cleaned that up.
Excuse me. Oh, I beg your pardon.
I'm so sorry.
Oh dear.
Next we glued the backrest assembly together, and we had a bit of fun doing that because it made farting noises. And then we unclamped that, and it went really well. And then we unclamped the front legs, and they went really well. No issues there. See that bit?
Yeah.
It's sticking up, we've got to plane it down.
Plane's there.
Thank you.
That's hard. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stop. Together, guys. And then we glued the backrest assembly together, and it was really good having their help. And now we're putting some small chamfers on the legs, on the bottom of the feet, so that they don't splinter. Very good. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you. This was a long video. It's not finished. I think we've got to leave it there because it's gone long enough. I'm going to do a part 2, which will be the last one in the series, where you will see some of the really cool shaping process of this, where I nearly cut my finger off with the router. I'm going to finally get the rock out of it, I promise, and we're going to convert it to a rocking chair. So, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Is this awkward? Sorry.